Welcome back to another video. Today I'm building upon the groundwork of some of my other videos about characters. Today we're specifically looking at characterization and character development. Characterization is the process of informing the viewer about traits of a character's personality. There are two methods of doing this: direct characterization, which is information given to the viewer not by the character themselves, but maybe by the narrator or other characters, and also indirect characterization, which comes from the character themselves, which can take the form of words, thoughts, or actions. Unless the character is intended to be mysterious like Johann Liebert from Monster, then it's important to learn the fundamentals of their personality within their introduction. It's not enough to just be told that a character is a lonely gamer, like say for example within Sword Art Online. This arcs back to my video called Boring Main Characters, when I talked about poor first impressions. Sympathy is cheap, and there are plenty of times when they will try and grab you and make you sympathize with the character by giving them this lonely, sad backstory where maybe they just don't fit in, or maybe somebody in their family died and that really affected them, which can actually be part of their character, but it's not really a way that you want to introduce these characters because it is a very weak introduction of your character. When you have somebody who is introduced with some of their positive traits, with some of their accomplishments, you're actually interested in them a lot more than you would be if you just see them as being weak. Having a main character who has accomplishments doesn't necessarily mean that they just get this free ticket to the plot and there's no conflict. They can be good at certain things, but still be outside of their area of expertise within the story. There is no set number of things that you can learn about a character, just as there's no set number of things that you can learn about a person, because technically that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to recreate the likeness of a person through story. Let's take a look at Edward Elric as a positive example of good characterization. Within his introduction, we learn a lot about his personality. He has minor strengths which come in the form of his early skills in alchemy because of his father's notes. We also have minor weaknesses with this character, such as the fact that he is very short. This also causes him to be picked on by other characters, which lets us learn a bit more about his personality and the way that he reacts. He gets this outburst of anger whenever anybody calls him a pipsqueak, which lets us know that A, he is uncomfortable with being short, and B, he has enough pride in himself to stand up for himself when he's being picked on. We also see that he has likes and dislikes as well. He is a person who really loves science. He's very curious about the world. He always wants to learn more, and he really loves his family and also those who are close to him. As we see, his mom died before the events of episode 1, but his remaining family, his brother, and also those who he grew up with are very important to him, which that actually causes him to want to improve. And of course, we all know that Ed hates milk. Some of these personality traits are completely irrelevant to the story that's being told, but it's important to have them there because they help build his character. How many times in anime are you introduced to a character that's good at everything or good at nothing? Maybe they're really smart or really stupid, maybe they're really happy or really sad. It's always these one-sided extremes, and we always learn so little about these characters. Can you imagine if you knew someone in the real world that was just this one-sided extreme like that? It would be very bland and shallow. You wouldn't enjoy that person that much, and it wouldn't be very interesting. The same goes for the characters, because they're basically trying to recreate people here. But regardless of how much you learn about a character's personality, they are static characters unless they develop. Character development is the process of having a character grow or change throughout the length of a story. This development could be caused by an external struggle, which could be their setting, other characters, or the plot itself, or even an internal struggle. A character's development affects their personality. Physical changes don't count. Bad news for many shonen fans, because training and fighting are not forms of character development. Having a character undergo strength training or learning new moves, or having him defeat this major boss that was a huge obstacle in the story, this is not character development, because that is actually attributed to plot progression. There are a few exceptions to this rule, but they're pretty rare. One of them being when Kenshin underwent his final training. Not only did he get a lot stronger and learn a new move because of this, but he actually learned the value and importance of his own life, which in turn progressed his personality. There's also the final fight between Kenshiro and Rao. During this fight, Rao gives his side of the conflict to Kenshiro, which gives him additional characterization. A few examples of bad character development, which would be be a red flag that there's poor writing somewhere or another within the story are time skips and split personalities. Now, time skips are usually when a writer has painted themselves into a corner and realizes that their character can no longer progress the plot or is just really boring and they want to spice things up a bit and change their character, so they just pause things, skip forward a little bit, and bam, they're different. This could make it feel like the character has a split personality even though they really don't. And whenever I see something like this within anime or within any story in general, it makes me feel like either the writer has no idea of where the story or its characters are going, or that they're just trying to be edgy for teenagers, kind of like with Tokyo Ghoul. And lastly, I don't think I need to explain this one, but if a character has form changes that he can change back and forth with no consequence, and maybe the form change comes with a split personality with it, imagine that right there. But that is also another form of poor writing, because the writer could not find a way to naturally get the character to overcome an obstacle. He had to have this form change and become someone else who can overcome that obstacle for a moment. Character development is usually expected to occur in stories where there is a strong struggle present, because if your character was equipped to handle the struggle, then there would be no struggle. Therefore, they are required to at least have some form of growth to be able to overcome it. Generally speaking, if a story is strictly comedy, then it doesn't really require the characters to develop, but if a story is a mystery, drama, or action, then you would probably want to see some form of development there, because it is a strong struggle which they must overcome. There is a bit of an exception to this though. Whenever I'm watching a movie that is strictly listed as action, and that's what it's trying to be, just a strict action movie, then I don't really expect a whole lot of character development in that. Like, say for example, with Die Hard, how much does John McClane develop in those movies? He doesn't, but they still work very well as an action. Or like, say for example, in anime movies like Ninja Scroll, Sword of the Stranger, they work very well as actions, but they don't really have a whole lot of character development because what they're trying to do does not require them to actually develop. However, if their story is long enough to become a series, then I expect some form of character development, because they are trapped in this hostile environment for a long period of time, and naturally speaking, if a story is written well, that would get to them in time, and for a long story like that, the struggle would actually create enough stress within the character that would cause them to have development and overcome the struggle. And while character development is important, it's more important to have well-detailed characters. You could have a static, round character that stays the same throughout the entire story that is much more interesting than a character that develops throughout the story, just because a static, round character will be more interesting in many different situations than that one-dimensional character that develops. You could also have static, flat characters which have poor characterization and they don't develop. This works very well for comedies or other series such as Kino's Journey, where the character's personality is not the focal point of the story. You could also have characters that are dynamic, static characters that are basically their anime stereotypes or tropes that pretty much write theirself until the author decides what they want to do with these characters, and then these characters change within accordance to the story. I don't really care for those. Obviously, the best type of characters to have, unless you're trying to tell a story that is kind of like Golden Boy or Kino's Journey, where the characters really benefit from being so static, it's best if you have round, dynamic characters that really you learned a lot about their personality but also develop due to the circumstances. But like I said, development isn't always necessary. Whenever I rate an anime, I always give more points to the detail given into their characterization. I don't always directly say characterization, but I talk about their personality, and that's actually a result of their characterization there. If they're a good character or bad character, all lies on how well they are explained and how well they're written. So let me know your thoughts on this topic in the comment section below. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe. If you'd like to support this channel, please check out my Patreon. If you're interested in learning more about this topic, check out my videos on what makes a good anime character and boring anime characters. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.